Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to tonight's edition of HR Mentorship Learning Series. We'll be looking at a very spicy topic tonight, handling sexual relationships in the workplace. Our facilitator for tonight is, permit me to use the word for the first time publicly, the sexy looking Ajoke Omotayo. Mrs. for the records. You know, if you are not sexy, you will not be able to handle a special topic like this. But for the purpose of people who may not know her, I will just read a bit about her profile so that we can pay special attention to her. Madam Ajoke Omotayo is actually one of the core team members, administrators of HR mentorship, and she has sacrificed voluntarily her time consistently over the years to support this movement. Ajoke Oyedele Omotayo currently, as you can see, is the head HR and admin with IGIT Shipping and Logistics Nigeria Limited. But she has been around for a while. Prior to now, she was the group head human capital management with Bethsaida Africa Development PLC. She was previously group human resource manager, J3 Holdings. Before then, she was also the head HR operations and business strategy with JSK Etiquette Consortium, among several other great roles she has handled. Now, let me just say one or two things with respect to her educational background. She holds an MBA from the prestigious Rome Business School. Let me see what else I can share with us tonight so that we can get to know about our facilitator better. She also has an HND in mass communication and media studies from Lagos State Polytechnic and an advanced diploma in human resource management from University of Lagos. She is also a certified professional in human resources. She has the SPHRI certification, which she bagged last year, and so on and so forth. With all the positive accolades, emoticons we can muster virtually, please, let's receive and welcome tonight Ajoke Omotayo. You have the floor, man.
Thank you very much, my boss, Mr. Diosho. Good evening, esteemed members of the HR mentorship community. It's my pleasure to be here tonight, and I'm trusting that we'll be able to navigate this extremely spicy, much avoided topic together by God's grace. So we're going to go in straight. Admin, I appreciate you. I see how you're admitting people and how people are feeding the call. Without further ado, we'll jump into it. The topic today is handling sexual relations in the workplace. Why this topic? Why this topic? I've seen a lot going on in the space, both internally and externally. I realize that a lot of us are careful about this topic, but it's also a topic that is in our face 24/7. So I said to myself, if not this topic, which other topic? And I first of all want to appreciate Mr. Diosho, because when I reached out to him that this is the topic I'd want to moderate upon. Another would be Emmanuel Abraye Barrister. He's our celebrity on this particular program. He has facilitated several sessions and he has another one tomorrow. We spoke back to back on this topic. So the first thing we're going to be looking at is the introduction. Thank you. Welcome to everybody that is joining us freshly now. The introduction, I'm going to just, I can't read because probably just look at it and then explain. The first thing I'm going to say is that sexual relations remain one of the most consistent occurrences when adults of both genders are together in enclosed spaces. A lot of us are familiar with BB Niger, and if you're not, just Google it and check it. The moment you throw adults together of different gender, well, I won't say of the same gender because Nigeria does not allow same-sex relationships. But I'm going to say that in this current disposition that we are in, it's difficult to bring 10, 12, 20 adults together and not have issues that are around this topic that we all avoid publicly. I said issues in the workplace will include money, development, career, a lot of things, sports, but the list will not be complete without relationship issues. We might not talk about it openly, we might not say it, but it's always underneath. It's an undercurrent that is flowing 24/7. So tonight we're looking at relationships that are beyond official collaboration. That's in case anybody is not sure. The relationships we're talking about are those that are beyond official collaboration. We're not looking at partnership. It's not about official project management. We're looking at relationships that border on intimacy. I said that again, intimacy, often consensual, and there's non-consensual. They might be sustained for some time, might be brief, what you call a fling. But everything we're looking at today is about relationships that border on intimacy. They go beyond the normal office relationships. The first question I have is, can HR regulate or stop romance and sex issues in the workplace? I've had this discussion with a few of my friends, my inner circle. Is there anything you can do about it? Can HR regulate or stop romance and sex issues in the workplace? Some older people have said to us that we really shouldn't allow it at all, that it's a distraction, it's that. But today we're going to look at it and we're going to find out, is it really possible for us to go through a period of going to work, meeting with people, interacting, and there will not be romance, there will not be sex issues that will come up between us? We're going to find out very soon. I'm going to look at a very brief preview of my own 2022. So you might not agree with me, but this is my own 2022. So I stand by what I put here. This is just a brief overview. And to get my data, I use Google, I use BBC, so that we will not begin to argue of how can this be true. I got from Google, I got from BBC. So this is my 2022. And I picked that the period was 1 year and the days are 365 days. In my 2020, that's, I said my 2022, I had 365 days, 52 weeks. And the weekends I had, according to Google, were 104 weekends, okay? The public holidays I had last year, according to BBC, because I went on BBC site to check for public holidays for Nigeria, it was 16 officially. And those are the federal ones that we all recognize. And then the leave days I had last year, this 20, my 20 is a conservative 20. Because you will see that I highlighted different leaves. There's a sick leave, there's a casual leave, there's exam leave, there's annual leave. Last year I went to write Rome Business School exams. Last year I took time off to go see my dentist. My teeth are not very good because I eat a lot of sweets. Last year I took a casual leave to take my daughter to somewhere. I took annual leave. So 20 days, no, I actually had more than 20 days, but I'm putting a conservative estimate. So if you look below my screen, I'm saying that if my total days off were 104 for weekends, 16 days for the public holidays, and 20 days for my leave days, I spent 140 days that were not directly related to me being in the office physically. Because right now I'm working fully. We're not doing hybrid in my office. We stopped that a few weeks ago. So I'm saying that out of 365 days, if I was not in the office for 140 days, how many days do I have left? I said 225. And you see that my bracket is in red. It says this might be higher or lower for some other people. I've said it that this is my 2022. So you just agree that, okay, this is JK's own perspective. So I had 225 days. So I said JK spends close to 2/3 of the days available in 1 year with colleagues. So can I take romance and sex out of the workplace? Maybe for myself, I'd be like, maybe I won't bother. But the truth is that we're spending so much time together with other people that it's very difficult for you not to come across that. I'm looking at other person's reality. This is somebody who said they were doing those discussions fully. So out of that, let's assume that the total number of hours that you did with hybrid, everything for 30 weeks was just, you're going to the office and interacting, physically meeting people and sitting down with a guy, a woman, was about 40 hours times 30,200. So we see more friends and families. That's the honest truth. Okay, Lekki now, I leave the house around my which is deliberate. I got somebody who is close to me. So we times 5:30, 5:45. But these days our traffic is lighter. Sometimes we leave at 5:45. So most of the time when I'm even leaving, it's actually not even bright. I barely see my neighbors too, because they leave around that time too, and it's like quite dark. And when I'm coming back in the evening, of course, I'm already tired. I just go straight into my flat. So beyond my core family that I see, the other people I spend my days with are my colleagues. And I said, men and women show up looking smart, brilliant, good-looking, creative, competent in the workspace. By virtue of my work, of course, my hair is in place, my clothes are in place, I go to work. It's the same for the men too. They come up looking good in their suits. I was having a discussion recently. I said to my colleague that there are some guys that if you had met them at the filling station in their knickers and t-shirts, probably wouldn't date them. But when you meet a guy in the office, well-dressed, with a good suit, the perf, it doesn't matter whether it was his wife that said, please, you need to change this perfume. He comes looking good. And of course, he's creative, he's competent. It's easy for you to get attracted. Same for women too. women come to the office looking, some of us, if you meet some of us on our no weekdays without makeup, it won't be the same conversation. But I said we naturally make more of an effort to look good for work. So I want us to look at a few statistics so that we're not just talking off head. I picked from HR Dive. HR Dive is a site that speaks to a lot of HR issues so that it is beyond our local perspective. This was published last year. And it said 77% of workers have had an intimate workplace relationship. I was like, wow, 77%. And this is an environment that has even more stronger policies than where I am now. So I'm like, so who is left? And it says 7% of 1656, they actually surveyed 1656 people, and it was done by HR consultancy. And it said 77% said they'd had a sexual or romantic relationship with a co-worker at some point. You had a sexual or romantic relationship with a co-worker at some point. Co-worker means we're probably together. Of course, the respondents went on to say that they were more likely to identify those relationships as potentially problematic, as well, with 7% saying compared to 17% in 2021. What does this say? Summary is that out of the 165 people that were surveyed to look at, okay, how many of you had relationships, sexual, romantic, 77% had said, yes, we concur, we've actually done that. And 37% of them recently said it was potentially problematic. That means there's some issues which we're going to look at as we go forward. But the fact that they were potentially problematic didn't stop them. They still went ahead and did it. So it answers to the question that it's inevitable. It will happen. The last para says close emotional relationships at work are increasingly common also. 64% of workers reported having a close friend or work spouse. What's a work spouse? We're going to go to that. So what this data is telling me is that no matter what we do, even though it's potentially problematic, it will still happen. This I got from Shrim SP, president of the Wellesley Mass-based HR consulting group. This is a well-respected person in the HR space abroad. And she says, many HR specialists agree that trying to prohibit workplace romances doesn't make sense. Banning all romances is not terribly realistic. Yeah, people will find a way. That's what she said. And this is an attorney who is also into HR. She said draconian policies will either drive relationships underground or make people look elsewhere for employment. What that says is that if your policies are draconian and I'm in love with a guy and I can't date him openly, I'll probably consider looking for another place where we can continue. So it means that no matter what happens, at the end of the day, even though the jobs are important, this thing that we call relationship, intimacy, it's critical to a lot of us. So in the context of the workplace, the answer is you really might not be able to take it out. Even if they won't do it openly, they'll do it secretly. So what do we need to do is what we're looking at today. Dating data among US workers. Unfortunately, Nigeria doesn't have so much data. Most of the data that we can get will not be as concise as this. This is 35% of those surveyed said they have gone on a date with someone from their workplace. So it's a continuous issue. It's a continuous scenario. 84% says they respect or would respect their colleagues being in a workplace romance. Well, we're a little bit more careful in Nigeria. We tend to gloss over things and pretend, I won't say it's hypocrisy, but this is an American survey, and it says 84% say they would respect or would respect their colleagues being in a workplace romance. So what it means is that when you find out that your colleagues are having a workplace romance, if it is not illegal, if it's not against the policy, what it says that 84% will actually not mind. They will be cool with it. They will respect them. Of course, the other side of the world where I am now, a lot of us will pretend that we don't like it, that it's not good. But these people have come and said that out of 100, 84 will be like, you know what, it's cool. It's a lie. So my main focus today, we've already established the fact that we really can't take it out. So why are we here? And what are we going to do about it? Sex is every day. Romance is every day. It's everyday issues for HR people. Maybe not at the same time, but something that we'll all encounter. And I'm going to give you a reason why we're having this topic now. My main focus is how to mitigate the negative effect on the business. It can have negative effects on the business and it can happen anywhere. As in, this thing can happen to anybody. It's to ensure that consensual relationships were allowed, as in where it's allowed. That is, because some companies will actually allow it. If it's allowed, we make sure it does not affect the business. And then we're going to look at how we can put checks in place to avoid issues that will rubbish your brand and make you wish the internet does not exist. We're going to look at 1 or 2 cases in future now, and you're going to realize that even though it's not a recent case, it's still on the internet. The internet just refused to forget about it. So another reason why we're focusing on this issue is so that you'll ensure the management and staff do not fall into avoidable scandals. Avoidable. Some scandals will happen, but if there's a way you can work around it, you work with the team to make sure it doesn't happen. And we're going to also ensure that sexual harassment cases, either internally or externally, are escalated to the appropriate authority. That is why we're having this discussion. This is what I'm focusing on. I'm going to give 2 examples very quickly of how it happened to me, not right inside the office, one of them, but it still affected me. I'll give you a very brief rundown. I had the privilege to work with a particular organization like 3-4 years ago. We had a security man who stayed in the premises. In the morning, he was on duty. His off days, we had another outsourced guy that would relieve him. And then in the night, we had mopos who were actually on duty all night. So one of these is, I remember very well, that was towards the end of the month, because towards the end of the month, after the payroll has been done, before I pass it to the internal control and CFO and we go over it together, I usually just take time in the evening when everybody has left and the office is quiet to just go through one by one, just to be sure that, okay, the checks and balances are in place. So on this particular day, I remember leaving late. And when I'm leaving late, in most cases, the driver would have left early because I'll just go with a colleague or drive myself. So he had left. So as I was leaving, we are done for the day. Downstairs, there was a bit of noise at the gate. So I'm like, okay, what's going on? And then I saw that there was a lady there, excuse me, making a bit of noise with 1 or 2 other people. And it wasn't totally dark. It was there, but it wasn't totally dark. So people in the buildings adjoining our office building were also, on the balcony. So I got to the gate. I was like, okay, Mr. Man, what's going on? And the woman was like, madam, that is, are you his boss? This guy, he has committed a crime. Or in fact, he has committed a big crime. I said, madam, whatever it is, we'll discuss. Thank God we had Mopolo on duty in the evening. So of course, no fear. So I was like, okay, there's no shaking. Let's go inside. Mr. Man, security man, open the lower ground floor. There's an office where we use as the lobby. Let's sit down. And then we sat down. Summary of the story was that this woman is across the road, like some paces down where my office is. But in the evening, our guys, the drivers, the security man will stroll down and eat and drink this thing that we all call fenuja. I can't remember what that is called in English. This sachet drinks, I think. So in the course of drinking and having a good time, he got talking to the lady's daughter. And long story short, the lady was pregnant, according to what they told me, because I didn't go for a test with her. And the mother was like, he's the one. The girl was at, the young lady, my first question to the young lady was, because the lady came with her mom, another, how in Nigeria we have people that will be ready to escort us to go and sort things out, whether you need it or not. And then, of course, my security man, the CFO, and then there's Mopo, 1 or 2 of them. So my first question was, babe, how old are you? And she was like, I'm 19. Her mom was like, do you know what you're saying? You're almost 20. I knew I was asking. Because my mother was like, if the girl was even underage, it's a bigger issue for me. She was like, I was like, you know what? It's okay, Mama, no problem. I now said, do you know this guy? What happened? She was like, well, it's not that we are really doing something like that, but he's my friend. Okay, he's your friend. Okay. There are 2 things I needed to establish very quickly because they were on my premises. That number 1, he was not raped. And number 2, it was not a case of that he was going to be charged for, molesting a minor. So I realized that she was an adult and she had said, okay, they were friends. So the rest was very easy for me. Because if it had been a case of somebody who was less than 18, that would have been a major issue for us. Immediately, I would have needed to call the legal guy guy, where are you? We have an issue. So I was like, Mama, what we'll do is that tomorrow we'll come and talk to you. What you need, exactly what you want from us, let us know. So we'll have this discussion. Of course, my security man was there saying, no, it's not like, I'm like, guy, will you sit down? Will you keep quiet? Will you let me talk? So when they left, of course, they didn't leave in a hurry. There was a lot of talk, a lot of drama. I was like, look, tomorrow morning, we'll come and see you. I'll send it. And I said, bros, you have buy market. I don't even know what to say to you, but tomorrow morning, we'll come back to it. So the following day, I called the admin manager, who was his direct boss, somebody in my team, and they crossed the road to go and meet the woman and discuss. At the end of the long story, summary to me was that they wanted him to be responsible for the child. I called and said, boss, this market I afford, is it direct debit to the door? What are we going to do? How much can you afford? Can you even afford this? I'm just saying that the lady was not my staff, but because my staff was involved, it's sexual issues. I had to sort it out. At the end of the day, it became a very major issue because like 3 or 4 days later, towards the end of the week, I was driving out. This particular day, I was driving and the lady stopped. The young lady, as of course I could recognize her, she greeted me. Because my admin team that went and gave me feedback, that lady just said we should commit, that he must be ready to support the baby. No problem. This day I met the lady at the gate and I was like, how are you? Is everything okay? Is it that you came to check this guy again? I thought your mother said she doesn't want. She was like, no. That in fact, I should not mind her mom. That as far as she's concerned, she doesn't even want pregnancy. That she still wants to go to school. At that point, I knew that we were looking for trouble. I said, you don't want the pregnancy. Have you told your mom? She said, no, I won't answer. But she knows what to do. Like she had discussed with my security man. At that point, I said, you know what? Come inside. I reversed. I now called our legal officer. I said, guy, we have a case on our hands. This is what this lady said. If for any reason, I'm not saying this guy has done it. If for any reason he introduces her to a substance that will try to abort and becomes an issue, we're looking at murder. We're looking at major issues. So we're going to have a discussion with them. And what we did, I'm very honest with you, because I don't want drama that I can avoid. The following morning, I told our guy to just go and report at the station that this lady is trying to injure herself, put us into problem, and it became a big issue. They sent for the father. At the end of the day, what happened was that they took her away from our area. Mama said she'd go and stay with her auntie somewhere. But when she delivers, though, our guy should know that is no problem. But what I did was, I'm just trying to let you understand that even though it wasn't inside my office, somebody that is connected to my office is already involved. So if anything had happened, all of us are in trouble. That's why I had to call the legal people immediately. When I left, she had not delivered because it wasn't long after I left. But I'm just giving an example so you know that it is not everything that is about those that are wearing suits and coats. It can touch you anywhere. If you're in HR, you're ready for anything. So I'm looking at the point of view of this person. SHR, there's another story I'll share with you later. This is the point of view of SHRM president. She is the most respected HR bodies in the world. The president and CEO, Johnny C. Taylor Jr. said, it's key that employers have a workplace romance policy in place to prevent harmful situations should relationships go awry. Now, president and CEO did not say it should not happen. He didn't say we should eliminate romance policy. He said his focus was on prevention of harmful situations. That means he has taken it for granted that it will happen. If at that level, of course, he has seen more than I have seen. Maybe he hasn't seen a just situation, but he has seen a lot in the HR industry, in other industries, cross purposes he has seen. So for him to say that what we need to do is prevent harmful situations, it means that he has taken it for granted that, CEO, come what may, it will happen. I'm going to show us a few corporate sex scandals so that we realize that this issue can touch anybody. So what we need to do as HR people will become more important, more relevant to you as we move forward. This is March 4, 2022. Sex scandal rocks MTN Nigeria as female staff accuses top shot Adekunle of sexual harassment. If you check them today, a lot of these ladies might not be in their office again. They might have left, they might have moved on. Mr. Adebi might not even be there again. But the internet has failed. Oh, no, the internet has refused to forget. The internet has refused to let it get away with it. It's there forever. So every time we're reading this, you can see that the picture of Adebi is not on this particular article I'm displaying. So it means that every time an employee is dragged into issues and it drags your brand, there's a ripple effect. That is the main reason why we're here. Because as an HR person, you're also not low-key, high-key, a risk manager. So anything that is looking like a risk that will come back to bite your organization, you need to think ahead and work ahead. I say to myself that beyond the daily HR issues, what are the potential risks that could happen if I fail on my duty? That's something that you also need to have on mind a lot of times. And of course, I need to say this, if you get to the point where you think that it doesn't matter, whatever happens should happen, you need to change your job. If you get to the point where you're no longer passionate about even looking at the risk and being proactive, then you need to leave that place. The next one is Vanguard. This was a very popular story. I read it back to back. It was so interesting, but it was sad. It says sex scandal, FCMB's MD proceeds on leave. Of course, I was one of those that rejoiced when FCMB got, I think, a female MD. Yeah, but the circumstances under which the MD had to leave, I would say this, that even though I'm not connected to him personally, every time I see this, I think it's sad for people to go through a career that you would call a glorious career and end it this way. It could have been done better. But is there anything HR could have done? We'll find out. Is there anything we can do to make sure it doesn't happen in our environment? We'll also find out. So my next slide, it's a little bit small, but I did a screenshot of a case that came up between Pastor Mrs. Abimbola and Financial Reporting Council. I'll just summarize what happened during the case. According to the case, I read it back to back, and it's crazy. To me, it's just crazy. This lady was married with I think she was on her third pregnancy while she was in the organization. When you have time, in fact, you need to find time and go and read this because they're all online, please. When she was employed, I think one of the bosses took a liking to her, and then of course back and forth discussion. She told him she wasn't interested. From what she broke down to the court, it showed that over time he would send her text. He moved her from one department to another department so that she was under his nose. He moved her to the library. He would come and spend time with her. He would send text to her. Eventually, he became the executive secretary, who was the overall boss. And then he said, if you're not going to do this, I'm going to transfer you outside Lagos. It became a big issue. Eventually, she did talk to her lawyers. Eventually, she was terminated because they couldn't work together. But she went back to the National Industrial Court of Nigeria and she made a claim. What I've screenshot here is towards the ending of the ruling of the landed judges. And it says damages for damage to dignity. He said it is in the light of all this that I have exercised my discretion in awarding personal damages against second defendant in the sum of 5 million naira. 5M. This is to be paid within 2 weeks of this judgment by the second defendant. Mr. Jim Osayande Obaze. I got this on the internet. This case was not this year. Mr. Jim is on the internet forever. The case is on the internet forever. So if this was my organization and I was HR, what would I be thinking? What could I have done better? And if you look at the last line, the slides they might not be very clear, but you can go back to YouTube and watch. Number 6 says that the first defendant is to pay claimants salaries and allowances from September 2013 till date, less the October salary, which is a sum of 5,431,000, 5.4 million within 30 days of this judgment, failing which is to attract the interest of 15% per annum. 5 plus 5, that's 10M. Now, in the context of my reputation as a brand, you can't repair that. In the context of my reputation as a manager who was accused, it can't be repaired. In the context of the employee that went through this trauma too, you really cannot pay her enough to make her forget. But I'm just saying that at the end of the day, there is evidence that issues are happening in the corporate sector. And at the end of the day, as a HR person, your job is to make sure that the ones that will come out is good news as much as possible. Now, I put this here for those of us that need to be reminded that Nigeria has ratified ILO's Conventions 190, ILO Convention number 190 on violence and harassment in the world of work. But even before this ratification that happened late last year, the National Industrial Code of Nigeria has already shown that they are not going to play or joke with issues that have to do with this. Of course, we're not just talking about sexual harassment, and we're talking about a lot of things, but I'm saying that in a case that borders on sexual harassment, it is very important for you to be proactive. And towards the ending of this training, you'll see another reason why you need to do that. Workplace relationships, I'm now going to look at both, whether it is consensual or not. We're going to look at some of the negative effects that could happen. Jealousy and resentment. I have a case currently where two adults who I know working in the same place have issues. I got to know from a third friend who said she has had issues trying to settle it, that even though she and the other lady used to be friends, but that she's not happy with the way she's behaving. And I'll tell you the summary is that one of them worked directly with a boss, a male boss, and they've had a good relationship. And then the second lady joined the organization. And in her own words, I wasn't there. She said, ever since the other lady joined that, the boss has diverted his attention. I'm like, excuse me, you're even a married woman? But the truth is, a lot of broken people are in the workplace. So we're going to get to a point where I'll talk about how you need to be careful as a HR person. Don't overdo anything. A lot of broken people are walking around. Some people are married and they're single. Some people are single and they're carrying emotional trauma in their life. So if you try to overdo what you're not supposed to do, you're going to be in trouble. So jealousy and resentment could happen where there's relation, even when it's allowed, it could happen. Passive favoritism. If I know that you're dating my boss and they give me A- in my appraisal, there's no way I'm not going to assume that your A+ that you got is an issue. It's difficult unless there are policies in place. There can be distraction and low productivity. Is it possible to throw people who are dating together on a project and they'll be 24/7 concentrated on that project? I'll leave that for you to discuss. On professional behavior, it could happen. There are times when people are actually having relationships where one of them doesn't know how to manage it. There are some organizations where it is allowed. There are some where it is not allowed. Some organizations will allow you to do it. I've read where a company said, well, it's possible, but it cannot happen in the same department. I'm aware that some companies have said a manager must not date his immediate subordinates so that the rank and file will not be broken down. You understand? And I've heard of cases where they will say, once you're in the same organization, one has to leave. In most cases, I'll say, please, the husband should leave. But I'm not saying that there are different situations. So distraction and low productivity, it's normal, it's natural. Because as I'm talking to you about the work, if I'm dating you, we probably want to be catching up. We're probably also looking at how we're going to chill towards the end of the evening. Also, on Thursday, we're already thinking of Friday night. You understand? Unprofessional behavior could also come up if it's a lady or a guy that doesn't know how to control himself. You've seen issues of where jealousy leads to unnecessary rancor in the workplace, where somebody says because he's dating a babe, another guy is showing interest, or a lady thinks because she's dating a guy. One of our colleagues has shared with us recently that he used to pick some ladies in his car, and I realized that all of a sudden they stopped talking to each other because it became an issue of that you're not closer to him than me. All he wanted to do was feel. I said, Ross, even the Bible says, let your good not become bad. So there could be conflicts of interest. That is always constant. Ethical and legal concerns. There could be impact on team dynamics. If you're HR people and you've seen any of this, you could also drop this in the chat. But I just want to say that going forward, no matter what happens to your policies, I need you to always be aware that even the best of situations, you will have this to encounter. But we cannot always eliminate it. So how we manage is what we need to do. There could be negative perception of the company. Of course, I'm reading about MTN and I'm like, wow, this happened under their nose. Because ladies came out with long petitions that this guy, Adebi, used to threaten them, all kinds of things, a lot of things. And there's difficulty in maintaining boundaries. Because once this hierarchy thing has been tampered with by virtue of somebody dating somebody, it's difficult to maintain those boundaries because you actually assume that, okay, these people are close enough to do this. Maybe I can also try this. And there's an influence of the team culture. I'm going to refer to the story about the FCMB person. It's this, my slide says there's influence on team culture. Now, under this story of the MTN Top Shot, what was said in the story, which you can always find online, was that the sales people were under a lot of pressure from him, you know, a lot of things. Now, I want to say that it would have affected the team because if for any reason, 1 or 2 or 3 of them had voluntarily become what he wanted them to become, or they've been in relationships, if there was some of them that were perceived as being difficult, not ready, not cooperating, do you know that there's no way they can work together as a team again? Because I'm looking at you, I'm thinking, is it because you're doing XYZ with Mr. X, that's why you're doing this? So even though we're supposed to work together and collaborate, the collaborate is impossible. That's just an example of what could happen. In the case of the FCMB's MD, of course, the story was much more messier. You go and read it. That's what I really want to talk about because, you know, it's just one kind. Because at the end of the day, somebody died. This story came out because the husband of an employee died. If the husband was alive, maybe we wouldn't have heard the story. But after he died, his friends escalated and said he died of a heartbreak and this and that because the MD was dating his wife and 2 kids that she had. They even brought pictures of kids. I mean, who does that? Usually, whatever we're doing, we try to keep the kids out, but it became such an issue that they brought the pictures of the children to say that if you look at the kids, they look like him. You know, I'm saying that at the end of the day, there's no way, no, whatever the team had been achieving under him, by virtue of that scandal, he had eroded it. So it also affected the business. So those are just some of the workplace relationships and some of the negative effects that we can look at. I'm moving to my next slide. And at this point, I need people to look at this, read, and answer my question. Please, was this sexual harassment? We have not defined it. We've not spoken about it. But all of us remember this story. I saw it online last year when a lady said a male colleague came to her branch and said, it looks as if you're still breastfeeding because your boobs are looking fuller. So according to her tweet, this is the tweet. This was the tweet that put that guy into trouble. According to her tweet, she said it was unprovoked. So I need just 2 people. If you're looking at this tweet, does it look like sexual harassment? Would you call it sexual harassment? So that I'll know I'm not talking to myself. 2 answers are enough and then we'll move on. Was it sexual harassment or was she being oversensitive? Was she being unnecessarily defensive? Was it, okay, let me play the devil's advocate here. Adebola Bankole, love, hugs, thank you. You said yes, it is. Okay, but let me play the devil's advocate. Do you know that when I come to you and I say that your breasts are looking fuller, please, we're all adults, so there's no word I'm using here that you have not heard before. Someone says, I see from both perspectives. Queensley, I want to agree with you. I would rather say, let me play the devil's advocate, because in HR, when they come to you, you need to look at both sides. Let me ask you, do you know, for example, that it's possible that he had a relationship before? Maybe him looking at her breasts and saying that they look fuller is a function of the fact that previously he knew what the size was. You understand? And now he's making that comment. Maybe they had a relationship before. Maybe now they're not having that relationship anymore. So it's possible. So how do I even know? You understand? So it's possible that in terms of her physique, he's familiar with it. It's a territory that he's familiar with. And so he thinks that he has the right to comment. Or maybe it's someone that they were together, but now she has married, she has gone on to settle down, and she thinks that he doesn't have that right again. But the guy is like, guy, these boundaries did not exist before now. Is it because I've had a child? So I'm playing the devil's advocate here. You understand? But the truth is that as a woman, I'll tell you how it is. If a guy can come to me and say that to me, would it be the same if I went to him and said, are you wearing boxers or are you wearing knickers? Because the shape of your trousers in front is telling me another story. What would you say to me? Like my children will say, it's not everything you see that you have to say. So I'll say he was out of line. Okay, there was an argument, there was a mad storm on Twitter last year. Is it right? It's not right. Some HR are this. Some people even dragged the HR joint that, they shouldn't have done that. Because if in case you don't know, I'll show you what happened to the guy. Because at the end of the day, you drag HR, but some of these things, they are beyond HR. So I'm going to this slide. The guy says, I was fired for sexual assault yesterday. Well, this was paraphrased by another very popular person on LinkedIn. He says, I was fired for sexual assault today. We have to move quickly. I resumed work yesterday. When I got to the office, I saw my colleague. She was looking more beautiful and refreshed after the Xmas holiday. So I decided to compliment her beauty. I said to her, you look so beautiful and your breasts are fuller. Are you sure you are breastfeeding your son at all? I said this innocently and nothing more. Unfortunately, she got upset and reported me to the manager for sexual harassment. The board had a meeting today and terminated my contract. I felt the matter was exaggerated. I didn't intend to disrespect her. I merely joke and now I've lost my job. Not the type of news I want in 2022. Ladies and gentlemen on this call, okay, was that a sympathy? Was that a sympathy call? Was he looking for sympathy? At the end of the day, okay, If you see what I put next to his slide, I wrote it there. I said, your freedom ends where my nose begins. And I'll explain that to you. If you want to swing your arms in the workplace or in a tight corner, please, it's your arms. If you want to hit the wall, no problem. But if I'm standing close to you and there's a chance of your elbow hitting my nose, that your freedom has ended there. Because when the moment your elbow is connected with my nose and blood starts, you have committed another assault. You understand? So in his mind, he felt he was just doing what? So if this guy was my brother, if he was my friend and he came over and said to me that, can you imagine what happened? You know, one of the first things I'll say to him is that, okay, I don't understand. Whether it is full or whether it is not full, what exactly, is that why you're in the office? Is that part of your KPI? I really don't understand. You understand? So I'm just saying that now, this guy didn't know. That is me. But is that something he could have gone through? Is there a training? Is there an understanding he could have gotten that would have made him know that this isn't right? Let me assume that he wasn't trained. Let me assume that he doesn't have that kind of EQ, emotional quotient. But let me assume that he doesn't have emotional intelligence and he's not even sure. Is there something that could have been done before then so that he will know that certain things are out of context? You're not even supposed to say it. Is there anything? We're moving to sexual harassment because the question that brought that slide was, is this sexual harassment? Sexual harassment is known to everybody that is in HR today. And if you don't know it when you're done, please go online and Google it. The NICN Civil Procedure Rules 2017, well, Barrister Emmanuel shared that with me. I could drop it on the group after this talk. But I just want to go over the definition very quickly. Sexual harassment means an unwanted, unpleasant, offensive, or threatening of a sexual nature distinguished from sexual attention that is welcome and mutual. There is a difference between sexual attention, a difference between sexual harassment. At what point does sexual attention become harassment? It says sexual attention becomes sexual harassment if the behavior is persistent. Also, a single incident or instance can constitute sexual harassment, or if the recipient has made it clear that the behavior is considered offensive. Or if the perpetrator should have known that the behavior is regarded as unacceptable. So in my estimation, that young man should have known that that behavior is regarded as unacceptable. Forget the fact that I tried to play the devil's advocate and said, okay, maybe they had an existing relationship. Well, that was a prior relationship, which is no longer in place because obviously she has gone on to marry, she has had a son. So you should have known that it's not acceptable. But look at the recipient made it clear. So your small attention that a lady might have smiled, a man might have been okay, it's still cool. But it becomes harassment the moment he says, I don't want this. So there's a video I watched that said, no is a complete sentence. But that was bordering on rape. And this topic is really not about rape because once that happens, of course, immediately legal teams went into action and only God knows what will happen to you. But I'm saying that in the office place, the moment somebody says, please, I don't like this. So for example, I wear shirts a lot. And for the past 5, 6, 7, 8 years, longer than that, I just don't want to exaggerate. The tailor that makes my shirts puts his monogram on the chest of my shirt. So when you see me, one of the things you'll see is either he puts JK, which is what half of my colleagues and friends call me, or he puts Ajoke there. So if you say to me that your shirt is really nice, I love it, and then you move closer to touch the monogram, if I'm not lining with a dirty slap because I'm conscious of the policy and I'm a HR senior person, what you're going to see for me after that is going to be very serious because I'm going to report you, I'm going to escalate seriously. And if you say to me that, I didn't know, I'll say to you that, look, complimenting me on my shirt is one thing, but trying to touch the front of my shirt, for God's sake, and for example, I color my hair, I've colored my hair for donkey ages. So if you say to me, this color is so nice, and then you want to proceed and touch it, if you touch it and I'm smiling, okay, maybe it's cool. But if I say, guy, don't ever try that again. And then next tomorrow you come and you try it. Next tomorrow you're trying it, and I've not started with that dead slap, but you're still trying it. It's already harassment. So if it's escalated, it becomes an issue. So even as HR people, in the place of work, don't say it doesn't matter when people escalate. There's a young man that said to me that he works with a female boss and that she's fond of asking him to stay back in the office. That doesn't understand why. And I said, is it that you guys are working? She said, no, she's usually not working. She's usually just on her phone. That is like she doesn't like to go home. That was his estimation. And I'm saying this because a lot of us will think that when we say sexual harassment, it is ladies. Please, HR, open your ears when people are talking. Hear the ones that they have not said and ask further. And I said to him that, is it only during certain, he said no, that usually it is when it's about, she will say, please don't go yet. And then they'll be together in the office. Has she made any, of course I need to ask, has she made any overtures to you? He said, no, but recently she was telling me that she's going to have a birthday party just for a select and that she wanted him to be there. Okay. And she's a direct, but do you want to? He said he doesn't want to go. He said, but he knows that if it doesn't go, it might become an issue. I said, at that point, you already have an issue. The fact that you're afraid that you don't attend a personal event, you're already afraid that there will be retaliation, is already an issue. So what's your HR? What's your HR like? He said, well, he's not sure you can talk to them or that those ones. That was his comment. Because I'm a HR person, when somebody says that, I know that they have dragged us behind and in front already. I said, okay, no problem. I now said later on that, you know what, if I was working with you, what I would have said is talk to a HR person. But okay, we're on the call together now, everybody. If somebody comes to you and says, my female boss, that she likes to delay me in the office in the evening, and I've told her that, you know, I really need to go, and she's like, just stay, and I'm not actually doing anything. Are you going to be bold enough to say, you know what, let me talk to her? Are you going to be bold enough to say, do you want to have a discussion with her? Because you also need to ask before you jump into it. I've had cases of 2 employees that were always fighting. We settled the quarrel years ago. Today they are married in America. So maybe the guy didn't know how to go about it, you understand? And then he was just fighting. But the truth is that you can't assume. So you need to ask that, okay, I'm going to have a discussion. So if this was my organization, I'll be saying like, I'll have a discussion with her. But before I do that, do I have the policy? If you don't have a policy, any discussion that you try will boomerang, because they will say that you're accusing them of what they didn't do. You don't have a basis for that discussion. But there's a policy that I saw when I resumed, and it's been shared with you at your onboarding, and it's something it's accessible to you, then I would have that discussion that, do you know that what you're doing is contravening our policy? But if we don't have policy, number one, where do you start from? So we'll get to the point where we talk about why we need to have policy. So I'm moving on from sexual harassment. Go online and read this. It says, this is another category that says the NICN, and for anything you're doing as a HR person, you're very, very much supposed to be very confident of what NICN says. So National Industrial Code of Nigeria has said that it provides 4 categories of acts that might constitute a workplace sexual harassment: physical conduct of a sexual nature, a verbal form. You don't even have to do more than talk it. There are some comments that people make that you're just like, do you know what you're doing? Do you know what you're saying? There's some comments that I'm like, guy, if you say that next time, you'll be sanctioned. If the person you're saying it to is not complaining, one day somebody will hate and escalate. You're not supposed to say that. Some people don't know what to say and what not to say. So there's got to be cases, there's got to be information, there's got to be knowledge sessions, knowledge sharing sessions. It says a non-verbal form of sexual harassment, non-verbal. We all know that. It could be your eye, it could be a wink, it could be a lot of things. So many cases online, if you go online and read, that people have actually taken up because of certain things that were not even spoken. Because if you're looking at me and you're showing me a picture that is pornography and you're not saying anything, nobody's hearing you, but I'm seeing it. What are you trying to say to me? What are you communicating? No, C says quid pro harassment is where an owner, employer, supervisor, member of management, or co-employee undertakes to attempt to influence or influences the process of employment, process of promotion, training, discipline, dismissal, salary increments, etc., etc., in exchange for sexual favors. This is so rampant. It's so common. The examples we've given, they speak to this already. Because if somebody is saying that the only way you're going to move up, the only way I'm going to give you an appraisal rating is because you need to do this, it has already contravened all these things. So in the case of your organization, if it's happening, if you don't have policies, our first question is have those policies. If you do have them, next thing is don't trivialize it. Have a discussion. Do you want me to speak to this person? And then you have that sit down and you let them understand the implication of what they are doing, but have policies first. And then don't forget that you need to involve your lawyers. Don't even assume that it's something that you can put under, because we're going to get to a case where we realize that not doing anything costs the organization. So the United Nations women, I went to their site. I think I'll drop this in the group after we finish this this talk. The United Nations women's site went ahead to give us the list. The list is long. The list I did a screenshot is in the middle. So I'm just going to read a few. It says unwanted pressure for dates. Can we go to watch a movie together? I don't want to watch a movie. I'd rather do Netflix in my house. Tomorrow again, do you want to go and watch it? I really don't want to watch movies, but I know you like films. I say, Olga, I don't want to watch films. And if it's a case of a madam saying that we're going to have a party, my friend is taking me to the club, will you work late on Friday and we'll go to, and you're like, ma, I really don't like going to the club. And you're like, why not? It's very interesting. Ma, I don't like going to the club. It is unwanted pressure for dates. And if the second is like, are you sure you don't want to go? You've not changed your mind. That's already pressure. So HR people, even as personal employees, be looking at yourselves that, okay, where have I crossed the line? Whistling at someone, catcall, sexual comments, turning word discussion to sexual topics. It happens a lot among adults. It's bad behavior. So I need you to be very conscious. If you're working in a very small mushroom place, you might get away with it. But it won't last forever. Someone will rise up one day and say, you know what? I'm going to take this guy. I'm going to take him up. Sexual innuendos or stories. There's some famous stories that boys like saying among themselves. You know, when men sit down together to drink, it's different from when you're among ladies. And when ladies sit down together to eat, drink too, you know, and catch up, the gist that we have together as friends, it's different from when you're in the workplace. So stories that have sexual innuendos, if I'm not part of your inner circle, please, why are you telling me those stories? Why am I even hearing those topics? I'm not interested. Personal questions about my social or sexual life. We still will remember that there's an ongoing discussion in Nigeria where people say, how was your night? How was your night means, how did you spend the night? So if I tell you how I spent my night at this age, are you sure do you really want to know? So if you say to me, how was your night? And I say, you don't want to know. You might say I was rude, yeah? But the truth is that, do you really want to know? So please, how are you doing? How are you today? I'm just saying. So touching an employee's clothing, hair, or body, giving personal gifts, hanging around people, hugging, kissing, a lot of things. Long list. Go online and check. But examples of sexual harassment. And it becomes harassment the moment the owner of the body says, I don't want this. If somebody has not said anything, yeah, you might get away with it. But the moment the person has said, please, I don't want this, you need to stop it. So this slide is just for a few of us to look at, and then we'll move on. I want to know, why did Microsoft Nigeria pay 13.2 million to their ex-staff? Why? We know that Microsoft has a lot of money, but was it bonus? Did she deserve it? Were they owing her? You understand? So the question, why did NICN order Microsoft Nigeria to pay 13.2 million to their ex-staff? This is the story that is very critical for HR people, because it shows you what your action or your inaction could be. Book on something about employment, getting ready. And every time I go to language that they escalated to this and HR and nothing was on, I'm like, I'm always having the urge to go out, you don't want to know. You really don't want to know. So you won't pass. But you don't want to be that person that was in the middle of that and nothing happened. So the truth is, this story tells us what can happen when we fail. This is a summary. I can't go into everything because I'm looking at my time. Ejike Maduka versus Microsoft and others. The applicant was Mrs. Ejike Maduka. Until her termination, she was the enterprise marketing manager of Microsoft Nigeria. Big post. She was also leading the women's advocacy group. The first respondent was Microsoft Nigeria. Second respondent was Microsoft Corporation, the global body. And then Mr. Onyeje. See me, I've called his name now. I've never met him. But his name is online. The internet will just fail to, will refuse to forget. Mr. Onyeje, the country manager and CEO of Microsoft Nigeria Limited. She alleged that her termination was because she rebuffed sexual advances from her CEO. Now, the story is wrong. How he called, how she did not call, how he called her. The story was just long. But at the end of the day, what happened? I'm going to show you, and this is an excerpt of what it came down to when it was broken down locally. Initially, Microsoft Corporation came and said, okay, they're not aware. They wanted to look at the fact that they have the right to terminate without any issues, but that didn't fly. And then they came again and said that anyway, they're not even aware of this sexual harassment issue, that as a matter of fact, they're not even part of it. That was done in Nigeria. But you know what the National Industrial Court said? They said, even though Microsoft Corporation asked the court to strike out their name, claiming to be a separate and distinct legal entity from its Nigerian subsidiary. Isn't that curious? When we're sharing the accolades for what Microsoft Nigeria did, Microsoft is probably going to post it on their global site. But when it became an issue of sexual harassment, nobody wants to be part of that. They were like, no, these guys are on their own. We're not part of it. But the court relied on the principle of agency and held the global body answerable for the claims of the applicant. So the NIC found that the allegations that the CEO consistently tickled and touched Mrs. Maduka and some other female workers in the office against their will and in spite of their protest was proved by the evidence table before it. How they got that evidence is a long story. But the truth is that at the end of the day, the court declared that the sexual harassment of the applicant is an infringement on her fundamental right to dignity of human persons. And they billed Microsoft 13.2 million against the first, second, and third respondents severally. Analysis of this case will take some hours because there's so much to learn. This case, just this screenshot, there's so much to learn. You look at what could have happened, what they could have done differently. You look at what happens when you make the wrong mistakes, and even your global body wants to cut you off. You look at the issues of people doing things and say, I don't like it, and you still continue. You look at the fact that when it push comes to shove, people will actually come together and say, yes, you did it. So please look at yourself. What are you doing? And look at the fact that his name is on the side forever, Mr. Onyeje. I'm not sure this guy will want to work in the country again, but everywhere he goes, I mean. So this is my summary of the case, because like I said, we're looking at time. Number one, I said, your freedom ends where my nose begins. Maybe you like tickling. Go and tickle your wife at home. Maybe you like tickling as a guy. Go tickle your babe. You understand? Maybe you like holding people. Please, we're colleagues. You understand? So if I'm not asking you for a hug, don't even give me. Don't even open your hands. You understand? So I'm going to look at my summary for this particular case. It's short. Say like, if you want to analyze that case for hours, there's so much that will come out of it. I said Microsoft could afford the best legal team. It wasn't about money. They had the best legal team. They even had policies, because one of the things I needed to highlight, let me not forget, is that the court referred to the fact that they had policies, that what they did was against the policies. So they even had policies documented. And you and I will agree that the kind of policies that they will have in Microsoft Nigeria will be a reflection of the global body. They won't be policies that you cannot enforce. So policies were there, but were they used? So my final point, I say inaction. The inaction cost them financially and put their name on the internet for the wrong reason. So as a HR person, make sure that whatever is going on, you're in a position whereby you do not give your company free advert from hell. where their name is held for the wrong reason. We're going to see some other cases in front, but I'm trying to make it as quick as I can. Implications of HR failure to deploy or enforce policies. Reputational damage to the brand. There's a fintech case I'm going to look at very briefly. There's a dark spot on employees' career. Look at FCMB. I'm not sure the MD wants to even, does he want to open up himself to public glare anymore in Nigeria? Some people will not just allow him to forget. It's not that guy. That guy, yeah, someone like that, they'll just go and Google it immediately. If he shows up in a public space, so he's like going to be a recluse or just delete himself from Nigeria. I'm just saying that. Of course, some people will say that it doesn't matter, but are you sure it doesn't matter? It doesn't matter to your kids, your family, your friends, your spouses. It matters. Careers, it can cause a career setback or career news for HR professionals, because you don't want to be in the organization when something alarm blows and you're running up and down, trying to write policies that you don't have before, trying to put out statements that you never had before, looking for someone to look at the English on your behalf that they write it properly. No guidance. When HR fails to deploy or enforce policies, there is no guidance. Having a policy makes us aware of the do's and don'ts, and the consequent management is perceived as biased if you don't have policies. So if you're punishing me because I did something and there's no policy, I'm looking like, why me? You understand? So this is Lemfi. This is an example of a fintech company that was dragged. This is a case that was last year, I think, on Twitter. Yeah, this year, sorry, June 2023, last 2 months ago. And I'm going to read only the first one. If you want to know the detail, just Google Lemfi, and you can see now that we're giving them free adverts. This is what you call advert from hell. Free advert from hell, because it's not the kind of advertisement that anybody wants, but that is what it is. So Lemfi was dragged on sexual harassment. This lady went online and said, today, June 1, 2023, Dimeji Ezekiel, she put his handle there, Dimeji Ezekiel on Instagram, a product designer at Lemfi. She tagged them to sexually harass me online. As a woman who stands vehemently against sexual abuse in any form, I cannot sit back and let this slide. And she went on to write this and write that. She wrote a lot of things, women deserve to have their space, which, if you're really interested, please Google it and read. But the guy had done a major issue. He had done a major mistake, because he had put certain things in writing that are not supposed to be done. By the end of the day, it is what it is. He had done it. And then he said, please, Lolly, honestly, I'm sorry. I'm genuinely sorry and sober. I wrote it again. Your freedom ends where my nose begins. Now, I've had people that said, I've had this discussion with male and females. I've had guys that said, can't a guy even shoot a shot? I'm saying, you want to shoot a shot. Be very mindful of the ground where the shot is landing. Be very sure that ground is prepared for it. If it is not, please take your shot and go and shoot it somewhere else. So in this case, somebody would argue and say, we have freedom of expression. Yes, the Constitution allows you to speak, but your right to speak, it does not give you the right to say the one that's going to traumatize me. So your freedom ends, like I said earlier, your freedom ends where my nose begins. So you can swing your hands. If you like swinging your elbows like this 24/7, cool, it's okay. But be very sure that when you're swinging them, that your elbow doesn't connect with my nose. Because if it does, then I'm holding you for assault. So you have freedom to swing your hands. But you don't have the freedom to connect your elbow to my nose without being punished for it. So he has the freedom of expressing himself. He expressed himself foolishly. And at the end of the day, he put his company into what? 6 statements. One, I will not read everything. It's a long statement. But anything that will make your organization need to shalaye, run from it. Shalaye means anything that will make your organization need to sit down and begin to draft English language, look for someone to edit, look for someone to read again. Try to avoid it, unless for a good purpose. It says, the first statement says, the first part says, hello everyone, we are aware of the recent incident of sexual harassment involving an employee. We are deeply concerned and empathize with those affected. Rest assured that we take those allegations very seriously and are committed to providing a safe and inclusive space for everyone, employees, customers, and even members of public. So the policy you're writing, it has to have it in the course of your employment. Of course, your privacy is your privacy. I don't want to know what you're doing afterwards, but make sure that what you're doing in that your privacy, in that your private corner, make sure that what you're doing is not going to reflect on my brand. Because if it does, it becomes an issue. So it has to be the policy. Second statement was when they had gone round and they came back and said, we wanted to provide an update regarding the recent incident involving a staff member accused of sexual harassment. After a thorough investigation, we have taken decisive action to terminate the individual's employment at Lemfi. Of course, they spoke about their policies. They spoke about the gravity that they believe that what they did was wrong. But I just want to say to you that at the end of the day, he had dragged the organization. He have dragged HR Join. He have dragged everybody. The reason I went online to look for Lemfi was because of this case. I don't want to patronize them. I don't even think I'm going to need to. But I'm saying that when I was looking for this guy, I was like, oh, I was speaking to my crew. I was like, you know that case? That guy, like, oh yeah. They went, it's Lemfi. So we remember them for what? For wrong reasons. So that's why we call free advert from hell. So what's your responsibility? I want to see how much you can cover. What's your responsibility? I call it CPA, Communication Policies and Action. We're going to make it very quick. More pictures, just visual, so that you remember. Number one, have a knowledge sharing session that highlights various issues. If you have not spoken about it before, if you don't have issues around it before, use emotional intelligence in engaging senior management staff. And that emotional intelligence, I'll tell you why. If you're working in a place where there are certain undercurrents that have been flowing that you've been hearing, you're not going to go and make it seem as if you know what's going on immediately. No, you're supposed to be more emotionally intelligent. You enter your management from the angle of, I'm concerned about the business. That in view of the recent incidents that we've heard here and there concerning sexual issues, in the workplace, that I'm thinking we should have a policy, or if you have a policy, I'm thinking we should have a sit down with our staff and just engage them generally. That engagement, if you want to help yourself, the agreement that you do for seniors might be different from what you do for juniors. And if it's a place where everybody has it together, fine. But I'm just saying that engagement will not happen without you engaging your senior management staff. If you report directly to the MD, to the higher hierarchy, let them understand what you want to do. And I'll give you an example why you need emotional intelligence. If, for example, your boss is somebody that likes clubbing, you are not going to mention clubbing in your discussion. You're just going to say that you want to have a discussion so that we'll look at our policy again and our employees are going to be guided regarding their relationships outside and inside. And then you can give instances, get their buy-in before you go. Because there are certain places that you will put up some topics for KSS and automatically you have entered another issue. Because the person that is very much close, working on the border of that thing is assuming that it's because of me. So get the engagement, have the buy-in, and then have that discussion. Along with management on where to draw your hard line on office romance, because you will need one. Now, office romance, we have established it in the beginning for those that started with us that you cannot reduce it. Sorry, you can reduce, but you cannot remove it. And even if you're trying to reduce it, there's a limit, it will still happen. So you need to have those policies. Along with management on where to draw your hard line on office romance, because you will need one. And now, there are 4 policies I'm going to talk about quickly. Some people have a workplace dating policy. It means that you can date too, but you need to be guided in your dating. Let me go there quickly and show you. Dating policies for Meta and Google. So the first slide that I showed you spoke about you will need it. The Wall Street Journal reports that Facebook and Alphabet Google have a policy stating employees can ask out a co-worker just once. An ambiguous response counts as a no. No matter where you work, it's important to know your company's policy on intra-office dating and to proceed carefully. So as far back as 2018, they had that policy. So know the policy in your organization and proceed carefully. So they have a policy of you can date. But if you ask me once and I say no, die your shot that you're trying to shoot. Just move forward. Keep moving. Because I've said no. Because if you come back a second time and I escalate, it becomes an issue. That's a policy that supports dating, but supports dating with guidelines. This is Meta. Relationships at work. Meta does not, I took this directly from Meta's side. Meta does not prohibit dating among people who work here. They don't prohibit it. So this is not a no dating policy. This is a dating policy. We have a policy that says, yes, you can date. In fact, you can marry on yourself if you want to, you understand. At the end of the day, we'll come to the wedding. But in the course of your dating, be guided. It says, however, we want to feel comfortable in the workplace and ensure that we have a workplace where no one has to worry about avoiding unwanted invitations or unwelcome flirting. For this reason, anyone who develops a romantic interest with a co-worker must follow these simple steps. And they gave some steps. So that is an example of a workplace dating policy. So you need to look at that, engage your management, understand, is dating allowed in this organization? If the answer is yes, do we have enough policy stating that this is how you go about it? This is where you must stop, and these are the lines that we need to draw. And do we have a policy that talks about when you're in a consensual relationship, how do you separate your personal and professional lives? So if I'm allowing you to date under my nose, I also must give you guidelines so that I'll make sure that this your dating does not affect the deadlines and the timelines that we have as a business. So the policy is what you need to focus on as a HR person. And you have a policy that has restriction on dating within the same department. I call that transfer caveat. We have one like that says, of course, if you're in the same department, maybe procurement, maybe finance, HR, no, please, bro, see, it cannot happen, madam. One of you will need to move. So we'll have to have that discussion. So, when you have policy, it guides us. So that's your responsibility. If you guide me with a policy, if I think I'm falling in love with somebody who is in my department, it's 2 things. It's either I'm ready to leave that department or I'm ready to leave the company. If I'm ready to do either, let me keep that emotion because the job is more important right now. I'm just saying. And if it's the other way, as a guy too, because you've guided them, they already know. But if there's no policy at all, many things will happen under your nose. And there's also and some will have a no dating policy. Some actually have a policy that says it's not allowed. Remember McDonald's CEO? Let's go to that very quickly. McDonald's CEO, they had a policy that says it's not allowed. So it says Mark fired. See how they are taunting him. Al Jazeera says, McDonald's CEO removed over relationship with the employee. The fast food says, Steve Easterbrook's consensual relationship. It was even consensual. So please know what you're doing. It doesn't mean that because it was consensual. If your policy says no, no is a no. It says he has a consensual relationship with the employee, demonstrated poor judgment, and he was fired because of that. And it's forever online. It says the fast food giant fired Eastbrook. I mean, we know McDonald's for so many things. This gentleman has added another flavor to what we didn't know about them. You know, he was fired for violating the company policy by engaging in a non-physical consensual, please understand, non-physical consensual relationship with an employee that involved text and video calls. Now, if you don't have a policy that talks about it, anything can happen. But your policy needs to guide us so that we understand that, okay, this is what we're going to do. I'll give you an example. Some years ago, I worked in a place where one of my very senior managers, I had some undercurrents. There's a way that the office assistant will always know what everybody's doing. Between the office assistant and the driver, they will know everything. So they cool it down. Long story short, we got to know that one of the office assistants, would I say she was dating or she was being dated? Well, all of them, both together, they had a collab together going on. And he was a very senior person. And she was an outsourced office assistant. And when she joined the organization, I knew she was a widow because in the case of widows, we have a portion that says that you're a widow because we also had a foundation that looked after widows. So I knew she was a widow with 2 young toddlers. And he was, a married man, well put together. And I had to have a discussion with him because we had a no dating policy. It was a no dating policy. I now said, sir, that, of course, emotional intelligence, everything is not just about academic memos. I had to have that discussion, engage first. That I've heard, and of course, I went to I heard some things, and I really don't want to believe. But before we move further, I need to confirm. I think you can talk to me, and whatever we're saying in this room, I'm sure you know that over the past how many years that we've been together, we've shared several things. Feel free, but I need to know because this is what the policies are, and I know you're aware. And I'll tell you what Baba did. He said to me that, well, this is December, that he's already making up his mind that by January she will stop work. He opened up that true. He said, but he doesn't understand that. He has never said anything to her in the office. That was what he said. That was what he said. Because at the point, when the matter is very deep, you switch to your native language. He said, oh, really? What about madam? If I had asked her, would I not be foolish? Is that my business? I said, really? I said, okay, well, we have a policy, and this thing has been heard X, Y, Z all over the place. What are you going to do about it? Because the next thing I should be looking at is how I'm going to, start escalating, but I don't have evidence. You understand? That was how I had an engagement. It's not that I saw them in the office and it was a third-party info. So I had to have that engagement. So emotional intelligence is very, and he said to me that she's going to stop, he's going to open a shop for her. We're talking about towards the end of the year. By then, we're actually getting ready for end of the year party. So I'll tell you what happened. Maybe it is true, maybe it is not true. I'll tell you what happened. At the end of the year party, we invite the entire organization's family to come. You bring your mommy, your daddy, your friend, your sister, everybody. Your relationship, bring all of them. So we came. So when we started the party, the senior people were on the high table. Of course, HR was there, tried to make sure everything was okay. And then the beautiful lady comes in with her children. Let me tell you what happened. The daughter was like, daddy, daddy. And she just rushed into the arms of this senior manager. Now, tell me, even if we had been hiding, even if we had been pretending, I mean, everybody knows that children, she brings them to the office, but I've never seen her take them upstairs. So obviously there's a relationship because it turned out that he had actually got an apartment for her, and true to his word, I think he started selling food somewhere in Ilasa. So these are true life stories. I had to engage because we had a no dating point. I'm like, sir, at this level, it can't just go like that. Something has to happen. And he was like, look, you have my word. She's stopping work in January. So that's it. But we didn't have a policy. But go to this gossip. He'd be like, who told you? How do you know? And I'll be looking foolish. He could even escalate. And then you must have a sexual harassment policy, zero tolerance internally and externally. So what happened at Lemfi was not internal, but it happened to somebody who works with them. So your policy must also speak about the fact that anything you're doing in terms of situationship, relationship, make sure that it's not going to become an issue for the organization. Let it be known. So if a man or woman are stepping out of their houses for issues, for engagements, for interactions, afternoon events, they are very conscious that they are going out as ambassadors. They are carrying the entirety of the organization on their shoulders because if anything happens, have you noticed that people don't quickly drag people that don't have jobs? Have you noticed the things that somebody that is unemployed will get away with? If you're working, you will not get away with it because people will search out on LinkedIn very sharply. In fact, they'll add Facebook. They'll go to Instagram to join it and then tag your organization. Then you have to have guidelines for escalating and always follow due process. There must be guidelines. If you're going to have an anonymous email, have it. And let it be known that it is dropping in the box of only one person. Only one person has access to this. Because sometimes people will not report if they are not sure. It's your responsibility to advise, communicate, and put the policies in place. And then there's got to be action. And then when they escalate, what do you do? One of the things that Mrs. Maduka said was that she reported the sexual harassment she got from Mr. Onyeje to her boss and to the HR manager. That was what she said in the court. And that they did nothing because they were friends. That was what she said, because of their existing relationship. So you escalate to your boss, he does nothing. You escalate to the HR, she also does nothing, or he does nothing because he's close to the MD. You understand what I mean? So at the end of the day, every time we read that story, you're like, okay, this HR person, maybe he or she was being careful. I'm saying he or she, I don't want you to know whether it's a man or woman. That's a research that you do if you're interested. Was this person more concerned about job? Was he more concerned about relationship with the MD? Don't be foolish as a HR person. Don't be caught in the middle of something that you will not be able to erase from your story. Do the right thing. It is important that we are in the good books of those that we work with. Cordiality is very important, but you are not going to sacrifice the principles that you should uphold as a professional on the altar of so that they will like me. It's not about like, it's about you performing and following through. And there's got to be whistleblowing channels, dedicated emails, special panels. One of my senior HR leaders who taught me at during my class for SPHR, I spoke about what happened in the organization, that a lady, she was an intern, and she escalated that one manager had been disturbing her. So they called him for an update. She said in the meeting, she was the only woman, that's my HR person, and that there were 5 other managers who were men. They had a panel drawn from different departments. And when they called the gentleman into the room, and she was putting the question, I was like, well, this is what we got, this report we got, and we just want to hear your side of it. She said she realized that he didn't want to talk, that he was, that she could sense it, and at the point, she now said, you know what, we're all managers. We need to see this through, but I'm going to give you one concession. I'm going to excuse myself for 10 minutes, and I'm going to come back. I have 5 men in this room. I expect that you're going to be able to have this discussion and give me the feedback when I come back. They have somebody did not blow the whistle. The lady went to report herself. This was a special panel. I'm just saying that emotional intelligence at every point. She said when she came back 10 minutes later, that whatever they wanted to say, they had said, and that he said to her that, HR, I just want to apologize, that I did not know she did not like it. That was what he said. And that he's ready to make amends, and whatever he needs to do is right now. So what did the policy say? The policy says, if it's a misconduct, if it's a minor one, this, if it's a major one, this. But in this case, the guy says that all he felt he was doing was XYZ. So she now said the buck now came back to her table to rewrite their policies and say, before you go ahead and do XYZ, ask, is this okay with you? And if somebody says, please. And then they also have to rewrite that we do not expect that senior management staff will try to coerce, try to convince, try to influence junior staffers into XYZ. I'm saying that your policy has to be, it has to be peculiar to your situation. You have a standard, but also look at the possibilities that could happen around it, so that somebody does not just, drop through the loopholes and say, this isn't covered in the policy. Because that lady could have actually done something else, but she went to the HR because she had that confidence in her. And then she said, after that, they had a special meeting with the lady, and she said, this is what the policy says. Unfortunately, this and this is missing, but we're going to write our policy. Do you want us to transfer you? This man is getting a warning, and this is what's going to happen, and this is what's going to happen. And she said to me that the lady was passionately appealing that at the end of the day, that she has learned so much from him, but she's not comfortable with his behavior, that if there's any way he can change his behavior, that she would want to work with him. I was not there. I didn't work with them. What she said during our classes, well, at the end of the day, the lady spent another year and a half with them in that same department, with that same person, wrote a professional exam before moving on, because they were able to follow through. Imagine if they didn't have a panel. She would have actually left and go and just escalate on LinkedIn, escalate on social media, and drag you unnecessarily. At the end of the day, what could be solved by a sit down together? I am not an advocate of let's sit down and cover it. If we're sitting down to talk and say, please, this is what the policy says. But if the policy is not complete, if it is not updated, what did you do? So I'm moving forward. We're talking about, I want to give personal caution for HR professionals. HR professionals, a lot of times we're involved in issues that have to do with emotions. So a few things that I need to say before we round up: ensure that you are not exposed to avoidable personal allegations. Ensure that you're not exposed. So if it's happening around you, the policies must be in place. What you need to do as a HR person to ensure that it doesn't become an issue for your organization. We're talking about it now. But even you yourself, I need you to be very sure that you're not going to lose your license to practice HR because of foolishness or because of over anything. So as a person, I want you to look at yourself and say, okay, excuse me, after I've done the policies for the organization, let me do policy for myself. That this is my boundary, this is what I'll do, this is what I'll not do. There are certain things that could be escalated in HR circles, and we're like, well, it's part of the job. But if it's escalated that a lady accused you that every time she comes to your office, please, or a guy said that every time you invite him to be a part of a panel, that you insist that he must be the one that must stay behind. So leverage on the open door policy or learn the hard way. I have a boss years ago who had an issue with somebody who said every time she goes to his office, he tries XYZ. And you know what he did? After long and short, because in this case, it was a boss. But the hard task fell on me to have that discussion that I heard this, and it's not even palatable to the ears, that I don't want to believe anybody, but I just want to have a discussion with you. And you know, he was broken, because apart from the fact that he's big on social media, big in the community, big in his religious circles, and he said, I'm going to promise you one thing, that every time anybody is in my office now, the door is going to be open. I will do that until I left. Maybe that if they're still on it, I don't know. But I'm saying that there are situations where you really, really need to do that, even as an HR person. But I know that because people come to discuss deep things with us, a lot of times the door is closed. So when the door is closed, what should you do? Learn how to gist without tapping or touching. I've gone to an event. A guy wanted to tell me something and he wanted to tap me. I'm like, bros, I held his hand. I said, sorry. I said, I know that this matter, you are passionate about it, but what? You know, say, please, I'm sorry. I said it's not about HR people. If you do that in your office, you could end up in trouble. So a lot of us women, when we're gisting, we tap, we touch, you see guys touching the shoulder, touching the hand, you better unlearn it if you're an HR person. Let other people do it and correct them. But if you want to gist, you can stand, you can sit, you can put your hands open. Go online and read about sitting postures and how they communicate. There's a way you do your hand that you're looking hard. There's a way you're doing your hand that you're looking welcoming. But the truth is that touching and tapping, if it is not asked for, please don't offer it. Avoid unwanted touching, even among your gender. If some of us are very quick to hug, officially, we are not allowed to have same-sex sexual relationships in Nigeria. The constitution does not allow it. But my sexual inclination is not clear to you. You probably will never know. Do you know how many people have sexual inclinations that are opposite of what they actually are in gender physically? So now you're rushing to me and you're hugging me. Do you know what it does to me? You don't even know. And I'm not going to tell you. So the truth is that if you're not my personal person that we do that together, why do you want to hug everybody? I've said it, that hugging is not part of your job. Stop sharing hugs freely. This is me and you as HR people now. Don't do it. Somebody comes to your office, she feels traumatized, the fuel scarcity is tough, it's hitting her hard, the traffic is crazy, she doesn't understand her boyfriend, or his wife is just giving him issues. Bro, sit down. Sit across the table. Have that discussion. Don't even open your hands. Say, let us pray. Unless you're very sure. You understand? Don't even open your hands and say, I'm just touching you for comfort. Please. Hugging is not part of your job. Stop sharing hugs. Even stop sharing touches freely. Be mindful of what you're doing, because you don't know who is who and what could be said tomorrow, but you can be careful. I said, study how to hug and kiss professionally. There are hugs that are professional. I see that a lot when we go out, sorry, by the side. Read about it. Please do it. And if you're going to give me a peck here, peck there, we know that those are done openly in public. We see it on TV. Oyibo does it. Blackwood does it. There's a way you go about this professionally. Be mindful of what you're doing. Everything you're doing communicates. This is me and you as HR professionals now. Handshakes that go past the elbow are indications of trouble. Not literally handshake. This is just like a proverb. I think, I read in one of the books, one of the novels I read when I was younger. Handshake that goes past the elbow is an invitation to trouble. I heard people saying it. So you want to comfort me, and you are hugging. You want to comfort me. You are holding my hand. It's moving beyond. Why are you doing that? Be mindful of your limitations. HR people, you are an employee, not a comforter. It's not your job to comfort everybody. You're not a comforter. I said you are not the parent, the partner, or spouse. Don't attempt to fill any emotional void. I'll break it down for you. There are a lot of broken people in the workspace. Even HR itself is broken. With what is going on today, with the issues that our employees have, with the issues that our business owners have, with the issues of fuel, with the issue of skyrocketing prices, with the issue of inflation, the scarcity of so many things, skyrocketing prices, people are not okay. People are really not happy. If you ask somebody, are you okay? Are you okay? If you ask somebody, are you okay too tenderly, they'll burst into tears. So I'm saying that let there be a boundary. Let there be lines. Don't attempt to feel any emotional. But if somebody has emotional issues that you've noticed, have a sit down with them. Do you want to talk to anybody? Is there anybody you want to call? Do you want to take a day off? But if you try to be what Yoruba correlated Baroye, they feed you what my husband did, what my mommy did, what my uncle did, what my boyfriend did. At a point, you have become more than the HR. You're now carrying the emotional issues with you. Don't attempt to fill an emotional void. Offer counsel, offer advice, offer support, offer assistance. If they need a day off, if they need a few hours off, if you need to talk to the line manager, I need you to be easier on this person because she's complaining and she's not coping. I need you to be more careful about this gentleman. I see that he spends a lot of hours after everybody has gone home. Don't let this become an issue that will be escalated. I need you to look at how you can rearrange his workplace schedule. Let's know what we can do. Do you need an assistant? Have those discussions, but don't step into that emotional void and feel it. Please. Don't be foolish in giving compliments. If you like my hair, I like this color, nice. Don't tell me what my hair is doing to you. I'm not interested. Whatever it's doing to you is your business. You understand? And sorry, this is a repeat. Handshake that go past your elbow if you're into trouble. Be wary of work spouse syndrome. A lot of staff do that, but I'm going to go over that very quickly. As HR people, don't ever let it happen. Don't get so close to a particular person that people will say, that's your wife, that's your husband, even as joke, please. Because the truth is that whenever anything happens in the work, and it could happen to anybody, you will never be deemed as somebody who is neutral. So I'm throwing that caution. There's some closeness that goes beyond, you understand, my personal person. You need to be mindful as a HR person. At the last time I said, do not lose your license to practice HR because of relationship drama. You're not even in a relationship. But when you have labeled somebody your work spouse, and the person is having issues at home, one day the husband picks up the phone and calls, says, please, I need to talk to this person, because I've noticed that even when my wife is in the house, they're on the phone. Or somebody's wife calls and say, please, I'm coming to see your HR person. And then what is it? You have turned this closeness to a problem for yourself. Be close to people, but be mindful of what you're doing. This is my work spouse and my real spouse significant. We're comparing them in appearance and in personality. This is from USA Today. It says, who is a work spouse? One co-worker who you have a special relationship in which you share confidences, experiences, etc. I'll tell you, it's very common. A lot of us go to work and we're onboarding. As a policy, generally, I do not onboarding in the office place. It doesn't mean I don't have my issues. It doesn't mean I don't have things on my mind. It doesn't mean I don't have things bothering me. But if I think a conversation is going to make me cry, I will never have it in the workplace. I don't even want you to have an excuse to hold me. You understand? Because from holding, anything can happen. You understand what I mean? So I'm saying, as a HR person, I need to be very careful. Because when I give you that leverage, or you've held my hand, we've had a discussion so deep, please, if you have issues as a HR person, take it out. Take it out. Because at the end of the day, how much of your issues can you share? And you're sure that, okay, this thing that I shared, I'm not going to fall into issues. There's something I tell my children, I will say it all that, you know your friend. You don't know your friend's friend. So, okay, I've shared with you that I'm being battered in the house. I've told you you're my friend in the office. I don't know who your friend's friend is. Or I've told you in the office that I've not even seen my husband for the past 3 months. And somebody says to another person that this lady, she's sexually stabbed. Her husband is not around. You understand? I mean, it's just loose talk. So why do you put yourself in the middle of loose talk? If you're looking for confidences, you're looking for somebody to put your head on their shoulder, it should not be in the workplace. This is me and you as HR people. Other people might try it. You caution them, but don't even do it. So this one says, in appearance, it's comparing the work spouse and my real spouse and significant other. So my work spouse and my work spouse and my real spouse, they are 7% opposite. They're not even similar. So there's a way you have interaction with somebody and your partner's like, why is this person like this kind of person? And you really can't explain. So I'll give you an example. I know somebody who his wife is close to me and we're friends. And she's always saying that she would have cut her hair. She's always saying that I would have cut my hair. But my husband doesn't like low cut. She's always saying that. But every single day, I see this gentleman, especially when I've just cut my hair, because, well, it's a bit full now. He's like, this is your hairstyle. Every time I see it, I'm just tripping. I wish my wife could do this. Excuse me? What kind of drama is that? So you can imagine what's going on. So I'm saying that opposites might attract sometimes. Don't put yourself in the middle of it. What you are in the office, depends on what they are at home. But everybody has chosen their path. Let them follow it. Do your job as a HR person and move on. And this space is in personality. My work spouse and my real spouse, they're 52% opposite. Just 30%, 30% in personality, 30%. So opposites might attract. So if you look at me and think that what is missing in your woman, you're seeing it in me, I'm sorry. I really can't help you. If you're looking at this HR guy who is taking his time to attend to you during your documentation, during your onboarding, and you think that he's very caring, he's very understanding, the HR guy also needs to be careful and make sure that he doesn't do beyond his work. You understand? It doesn't fall into trouble. This is from new SHRM survey. We all trust SHRM. They're one of the most respected global bodies in the world. I hype HRCI more because I did SPHR, right? But I respect them a lot too. And it says nearly 1/4 of US workers have had a work spouse. And of those workers, 20% have felt romantic feelings towards this individual. It says 1/4 of US workers say they are currently open to being involved in a workplace romance. So that's a different angle. A lot of people are ready for workplace romance. So the truth is that even if you don't have it in mind, other people might have it. So as a professional in your dealings, the way you stand, the way you walk, the way you attend to them, the way you address issues, be guided by your policy. Have it at the back of mind that your good must never be called bad. Be conscious of yourself. One of my leaders will say to me that everything communicates, and I believe it. So the way you talk, the way you do your eyes, well, me, I'm a good listener. I can listen. But I will not listen to the point where I will say, you know what? I think you need a hug. I'm not doing that. Man or woman, unless I'm very sure that this is my personal person. So I'm just saying that we can never be too careful. This is Shrimp. Workplace romance is on the rise. Even amid the growth of remote and hybrid work, intimate relationships among co-workers are increasing. So it's essential for HR leaders to have a policy in place. It is increasing. It is not going to decrease, because I'll tell you the truth. I was talking to somebody today when I went out. A young chap is just married and said to me that he's getting upset in his house. That because every time he comes back home, his wife is asking him for money, for Pampers. It was today that I learned that Pampers is now maybe 11,000 plus for size 3, and that she has said the baby now needs size 4, and it took time to explain. Of course, I can listen. He was fixing my car, as you explained to me. So if you have a colleague like that in the workplace who is already frustrated because of the demands of a relationship that he went into by himself, he's already frustrated, and people are going through a lot. If you're someone like that, and you now offer a shoulder, that becomes a back, that becomes a front, you're looking for problems. So as HR, you need to realize that people are not okay these days. A lot of us, even as they're not okay, we're facing a lot in the country. So do not go beyond what you can do as a human being and as a professional. But essential for HR leaders to have a policy in place. Romance will be more, because a lot of people are seeking comfort outside the house. And if you're not in the house, I've shown you a breakdown of what I did last year. Most of my time was either in the office, 220 something days. So if you're not in the house and you're outside, you're probably most of the time outside in the office. People will seek solace there. So in the course of seeking solace, your policies must speak to the fact that it's either we're not allowing you to be in the same department, we're not allowing you in the same company. Let it be known so people are guided. If you don't guide them, they are prone to fall into issues. I've read somewhere that whatever you do not correct, whatever is condoned, it will never be changed. I'm rounding up now. The last thing I want to say is that the way to get started is to quit talking and begin doing. What can you do differently as a HR person? I'm going to close now. I thank you for listening. I hope all of us have gotten some value from this session. Thank you, Mr. Liemi Adeosun.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Ajoke Omotayo. I must confess, I dropped in the chat box that based on the power, intensity of this presentation, I wanted to argue. It's just that it may look like I'm now disobeying what you're teaching us. That was powerful. That was scintillating. That was massive. We would like to take contributions and comments as much as possible, maybe questions. It's my brother on this call tonight. If you're on this call, please put on your video. Aderele Amosu, I'd like you to coordinate this particular aspect. If you're on this call, put on your video, my brother. Good to see you. Chop Noku, at least that one is still allowed. Chop Noku. Thank you so much. Over to you. You can unmute Aderele so that we can confirm that we can hear you. Some people have already raised their hands. I hope they want to tell us emotional stories that will make tonight.
Okay, let me check those raising their hands, right? So that
we have Deborah Dumbiri here. We also have Demola Obason here too.
Okay. So let's start with Demola Obasoya. Demola Obasoya, what's your question?
Or contribution. You can unmute, Demola. Demola, are you speaking to us? Adele, can you hear Demola?
No, I can't hear Demola. I can't hear Demola. Okay.
Hello.
Yes.
Okay, we can
Demola,
hear you
we
now.
can hear you.
Okay. There are two. Now I remember that I was constantly pestering to date me. Now she was in a different branch, so she was not working with my own branch particularly. So I thought, oh, if I press her, it's no problem now. Hello. So I felt no problem if I pressed her, but now I think now from the metaverse, Google Meta, I think I think basically I took a lot of things away from the fact that it's now in organization we don't have a sexual harassment policy, and I think we should now. I'm not the head of HR, so I think that's the reason why I've not actually initiated that thing. I said that the senior management does with the junior staffs, and it's not well. Like they say certain things that I feel these guys, okay, you be around now, not be saying this sense. So our boss who I'm pretty sure would just say, Carol, it doesn't. But for me, it's something because I feel that what they are doing, what they are doing, and not the colleague, even the guys, the ladies, support of it. And I'm saying that you guys, this man is touching you. Make it, how do I, as officer, I just have to know if we were that it can be escalated. Someone can come in later and say to escalate it. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Demola. Even though your network was
Hello.
breaking in between the lines, we'll take it at that. Let's quickly move over to Deborah Dumbri. Deborah, please. After Deborah, then we'll move to Iyanu. Deborah, you have the floor.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Wow. This is mind-blowing. This topic was killed, like Madam Ajoke, you killed it, like you nailed it, you mothered it. So nice. One thing that resonated with me was the fact that this topic is not just about sexual relation within the organization. When you mentioned, I followed through all through, like I followed from the beginning to the ending. When you mentioned the Gateman issue with the other lady where they get these hot drinks and pregnancy and everything, it made me understand that it's not just about the in-house to say someone is staff to staff, but the brand, in fact, as a child, we need to be careful. It really went down, it sinks to my brains. I would also like to add that as HR professionals, there is need for us not to understand emotions and the part of empathy. So we used to preach empathy. Somebody comes to you, oh, my wife, oh, my husband, oh, my this. And yes, you can say, oh, so sorry about that. Hope you're okay. Do you want, like you said, you said all that. But we should not now take the place of, we should not now add emotions to say, oh, sorry, come hug, come kiss, come do this, because the other party might even be a setup. It might be a setup. There might be a recording. The person might be paid to nail you as an HR person because you are known and you can be broadcasted everywhere. So we should be careful, like you said. I'm so excited about this topic. Thank you very much, Madam Ajoke. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Aderele, where are you? Aderele, where are you? Thank you so much. I think we can take Iyanu. Iyanu, please share your contributions, please, Iyanu.
Okay, sir. Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Yes. My own is just a kind of question because a scenario happens in my place of work. A situation whereby a male colleague just discovered that a female colleague clothes was stained due to their monthly stuff. So the guy now called the attention of the lady that, hey, you are somehow stained though. Immediately, the guy told the lady about what happened to her. The lady just took the case up that the guy is harassing her, that why did you just settle her since the church man. The guy was saying that not because I happen to be the first person that discovered that stain on your clothes, and I have to call your attention. Before you know, the lady started talking that the guy has assaulted her, harassed her, and the case was taken to the management. So now, in a situation like this, I don't, as an HR, what are we going to do? Because the guy was saying that he has anything that what he was just trying to do is just to call her attention that maybe she needs to change her clothes or all those things. Though. So as an HR, how are we going to solve that issue? Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ayano. I'm sure at some point our facilitator will respond to your question. Meanwhile, you can check the chat box. Some feedback are already coming in. We'll quickly take Nonye. Jennifer Nonye, you have the floor, please. Okay, let's go on to Victoria Abimbola. Victoria, you can unmute. Vicky.
All right, thank you very much, sir. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, JK. This was very touchy. I think my take home from here, apart from every other thing, is so I have a colleague who feels like, because I'm someone when I'm very serious at work, I don't smile, I don't laugh, I just face my work. So whenever it comes down to my office, he comes to my back and say, "Oh, you're looking stressed. That's why you're frowning." And then he tries to massage me, touch my shoulder. He comes to my back and touch my shoulder and start massaging me. I don't know. I feel that is weird, but because I know that it's coming from a point of sincerity, I have never told him that I don't like what he's doing. I would just smile. Sometimes I would shrug a little bit. And I think that has continued for since I have that guy as my colleague. And I think from this session now, I'm beginning to see what I should have done better. Like when Mama JK said, if you tried, if I did not slap you, I'll tell you, don't do that again. So maybe I should have stopped that my colleague instead of just entertaining that for like 4 years now and kept doing that. And he sincerely might not know that I don't like what he's doing. And so that's number one. Then number two, something happened in my organization recently, and we found out that an office assistant that we just hired a few years ago and brought from the north is currently in a relationship with our MD's driver, and they've actually started visiting each other, going to each other's houses, and they've actually started taking each other out with the company's vehicle and a lot of things like that. And I actually found out from HR mentorship series because I shared that meeting out on my status, and one of my assistants saw it and joined. And then in the meeting, he dropped this question that what should you do when you discover that one of your colleagues are harassing each other and you are scared of telling HR? So when I saw it, I screenshotted it and I asked the guy the next day that what's going on in the office, and then he told me everything. And we have a policy that says no relationship. If you had to go beyond, if you had to date each other, one of you has to leave. And I immediately did exactly what Majeke said by talking to them that, okay, one of you had to leave. And the guy said, okay, the lady will be leaving and start selling airs and weavons and also. That was how I was able to manage that. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Abimbola, for your comments. Did you have any other question aside from the comments that you dropped?
Okay, hi, good evening. Good
Yeah.
evening, everyone.
Hi, good evening, Noya Jennifer.
Good evening.
All right,
Yeah.
thank you
Go
very
ahead.
much. Thank you very much for this session. I think you've done justice, sorry, in trying to move the elephant from the room because this is much needed. So now I want to ask, it's not related to me directly, but I think in that either on the WhatsApp group or in other WhatsApp groups that I joined, right? And there was a scenario where someone asked that there is a guy in her office, right, who was like dating two ladies at the same time and was also having sexual relations with them. And I mean, both of them, the ladies, right? One didn't know. I think she got to find out from someone or something. And then the other one that was like the very first girlfriend, right, was very, upset and, had to go to the HR to complain and all that. And the question was, how was she supposed to like handle it? So this is something that didn't happen in the office. This is outside the office now, like a case of, someone double dating, let me put it that way, right? So how do you handle that as a HR professional, being that this happened outside the office and two female employees are involved with a male employee as well? Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Ajoke, do you want to answer that?
Thank you very much, Laura. Well done. Thank you everybody for your comments. I appreciate you. I don't know if Barrister Emmanuel is on this call because there's a question I have for him too. But I'm going to start with the first gentleman who spoke about the lady with the red stain. We are all adults. Let's call it. She's in her period. She's doing menstruation. Her dress got stained with blood. It happens to even the best of us sometimes. I think the emotional intelligence part of it is the fact that there are some issues that women are comfortable speaking about with women. And there's some issues that they are more comfortable speaking about with men. So in cases that have to do with, I need a tampon, I need a sanitary towel, I need a pad, it is easier for a woman to have that discussion. If I was that gentleman, and what I would tell him if it ever happened was that next time, I appreciate you could have just tapped your colleague and said, tell her. I've had cases where ladies will come into the office and maybe one button is missing, one zipper is not up. If I say that to them, they take it a good faith. But if a man says that, they could interpret it to so many ways. So it's the emotional intelligence of knowing what to say and what not to say. Menstruation is a natural thing, but even up to tomorrow, we still don't want to talk about it. But the truth is that when ladies find out they suddenly have to use pads in my office, they feel free to come to me because they know I always have extra. It's there. The moment you're joining, I think that we have packs of tampon, we have pads, whatever you're using. But if a guy is sitting in my space, can he do that? It might be difficult. It is not sexual harassment. Maybe he observed and he didn't know that, okay, it's not everything you are quick to say. So what I'll say to him is that, sorry about that. Next time, I hope you have learned. Just tell the ladies to tell her. That's all. That's not an issue. And then the other point that Vicky raised, Vicky, I really want to appreciate what you said because you've given us a real life example of how things can go on if you don't say anything. The sexual harassment policy talks about unwanted. So at what point does sexual attention become sexual harassment? It is when the beneficent now says, you know what, it's enough, it's over at that point. And then for the issue of people who are dating, if you have a policy, at the end of the day, I will always say, go back to your policy. HR is not head knowledge only. And HR is not about, it's not about the way I feel. There was one of my bosses that when you want to assess years ago, you say, I don't care about your feelings. What do you think we should do in line with the principles and policies and objectives of the organization? So what does your policy say? I'm not going to be able to advise you outside your policy. If you have a no dating policy and it has come to your attention and somebody has escalated, you already have 3 culprits involved in this dating, which is a violation of your policy. So at that point, it speaks to your handbook. Does your handbook say you will have what you call a panel? Does it say you're going to give them a query? The truth is that we cannot take it out of the workplace. So your policy is what you need to focus on. And if your policy has a dating policy like Meta, like Google, that allows it, then you're going to look at the guidelines. Do we allow double dating? It is beyond HR to dictate to a guy that a guy will shoot his shot anyway. That's the honest truth. As of ladies too. So it is for the lady to say that I know that you're dating XYZ. I'm not going to date it because of that. If he has deceived both of them, it's a separate issue. But as far as you are concerned as HR, what does your policy say? Does it allow dating? If it allows dating, the dating must not be one that will cause breach of the peace. It must not be one that will interfere with the organization. It must not be one that will cause disruption. So dating 2 people is already violating both of that. So I would say, please go back to your policy. If there's a no dating policy, the 3 of them are already violating it. Sort that out in line with your policy. There must be a prescription or sanction. And if your policy allows dating and it has a clause that talks about your dating must not interfere with the peace, then you're going to have a sit down with the 3 of them. 3 of you are doing, you're already disrupting the business. In fact, they already messed up the culture. There's no way the team can function normally. So please, wherever you are, I'll talk about the policies. Go back to your policy and check. We need to know what you allow. Whatever you allow, fine. If you don't allow it, that's all. Thank you very much.
All right. So in addition to, what Ajoke just said, and that's regarding, calling the attention of a female to, certain things. I, for one, when I'm in the office and I see a female colleague who is dressed outside the acceptable work dressing, for instance, I don't approach. I have that as a rule, right? I wait for another female HR person to come into to say, oh, I noticed something and I think you should speak to that person. The fact that you as a guy has seen, I don't want to call it an anomaly, but something that is not ordinary, right? The way the workplace is structured these days, right? You need to know when and where to speak, right? It's best you do not speak at all or call the attention of a female to do the speaking for you. All right, thank you very much, Ajoke. Do you have any other hands up or any other questions in the group? Okay, someone, Olemi says, will the dating policy state the quantity of dates or that it should be monogamous dating? Okay, that's a very funny one. So I think to be safe, right? Your policies should state that especially if you have a dating policy, right, it's best it's monogamous at best, right? Because the moment it's vague about whether it's monogamous or not, right, a lot of issues will arise. Take for instance this issue that this last speaker said. one person is dating two people outside, the chances that there's going to be a lot of friction is high. And like Adoke said, the moment that even happens, it's going to cause issues. So HR is now tasked with speaking with these people, right? Calling their attention to say, guy, what you're doing is bad. It's either you go with A or you go with B, or you terminate the relationship entirely. Any other questions? Any other hands raised?
I think Yetunde Akintoye's hands are up.
Ah,
and
yes.
Comfort
Yetunde.
Ekpayong.
Okay, let's go with Yetunde first. Yetunde, over to you.
Sorry, I'm already giving you side eyes already. Okay. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Go ahead, please.
So I think everything you said so far, of course, to a private sector, yes, policy and all that. But let's come down to public sector. I've worked in public sector before, but I must tell you that thing that they call sexual harassment happens a lot. I mean, a lot and lots are being swept under the carpet. You know, at times the person you're even taking the matter to is even a sexual abuser. So where are you going to? What else will the matter go to? So you just keep it up. I had my own share when I was working in the public sector, and I have about 9 executives that I report to directly. So out of these 9, I have about 5 that are on my case, as in really on my case, including the chairman of the what's it called? The chairman of my own department. So the chairman, the financial secretary, the treasurer, as in, it's not as if they are doing and so I don't know if you get the Yoruba. Sorry if you don't get Yoruba here. I mean, so that's how the pressure was. It was so much that even if I'm doing anything and they keep saying it to my face, it's as if as the chairman says his own, he leaves, the next person that comes in is saying his own. So the extent that whenever I'm even doing anything in the office, someone will be moving closer to me, and I'm not comfortable. And I thought, okay, the person I even intend to report to, I hear them all say these things beside me that, you know, they're having these days. And guess what? It's even in an educational sector. I don't want to mention the college of it's more like university. So I don't want to mention the university, but it does happen. So you see a lot of lecturers come in and tell you students do that. You know, even staff, even the married ones. So you will not be feeling like, okay, who am I even going to report this thing to? So it was so much. I asked this my husband about it. They have to come up with a technique. It took knowledge. It took grace. At a point, I had to add it to prayer points. It took grace to, you know, cut them down one after the other till all the executive left. And guess what? The new set of executives that came in as well, because it's more like a 2 years span. So the new set of executives that came as well, I wanted to be seeing the same what's it called, but you know, I was able to quickly say that. So it even made me so blunt at the point. I tell them straight, like, I know where you're coming from. Forget that you're my boss. I will not take that shit. And you know, and immediately they drop back. It takes, of course, not everyone that could, you know, go straight like that to their chairman, go straight and talk straight like that to their executives and all that. But they just have to build me to that extent. And that's what it really, really worked for me. Because the public sector, a lot happens, a lot. And yeah, as in, it doesn't get to you know, to come out to the limelight. And you see that married women, they are really so much in this thing. So if you're not telling them that you are married, they'll be telling you there's no big deal. Married women, and you thought they had one yesterday, and you'll be like, okay, that is them. So it does happen a lot. I just don't want to say you're too fine. What do we have to do? So, but at least, you know, that's something that there's no, I can't say there's a policy or anything guiding the public sector on there. Those that come into limelight here, those that does it, lots of it gets swept out. Even at the point, they either transfer you to another department and they keep transferring you. Later, they just put you in a kind of department that, you know, you see yourself not really functioning any longer. So thank you. And thank you, JK. It's really an awesome evening.
All right, thank you very much, Yetunde. So one thing I know very well about the public sector is, yes, these things are very rampant, right? But due to the Me Too, I think when the Me Too movement started, right, and a bit of the feminism movement started a few years back, and a lot of ladies there coming out, especially within the university space. At least we know of one that just happened 2 days back, where the students of the university, or the legal department of the University of Calabar, spoke out against a professor. And apparently, this is even the second time the professor was involved in such a thing. And now the professor has been asked to step down. Every public sector has that channel. I think they call I don't know. I don't think they call them HR, but I think it's the admin unit where things like this can also be escalated to. A Servicom unit also there's a unit in Servicom where because Servicom usually attends to customers of the public sector, but there's also a unit inside Servicom where staff within that unit can also report such cases. So when you feel that you're in the public sector and yes, nobody's going to listen to you because the disciplinary measures in the public sector is not like the private sector. Most of the time it's a slap on the wrist. They'll tell you don't do it again, right? You just need to apply wisdom in such cases, right? It now depends on who is on the other end of the stick and how much punishment that person may get. More often than not, like yesterday said, they will transfer you if they feel you can't work with a certain person. Either they transfer you or they transfer that person. But what is more important is that when these issues come up, you speak up. Posterity will always have it, right? Because if it happens another time, you say, oh, she's always been talking about it. But when you keep quiet, they'll say, when it was happening, you didn't say anything. Always have such things on record because one day those records will be called and the person who has been harassing you will have to face the music. All right. There was a lady who had her hands up. I think she's dropped off. Comfort, yes, Comfort. Yes, Comfort, please go ahead. Hi, Comfort, your mic is muted.
Hello. Okay.
Hi, Comfort,
Good
we can hear you.
evening.
Go ahead.
Good evening,
Comfort.
everyone. So my
Yes, please go
question to the facilitator is for where the hiring manager is harassing a potential candidate. Who does the shooting? Is there policy regarding that for candidates? Because where you have instances, you invited me for an assessment. After the assessment, you scribble a note for me to meet you at some point, and I turned down the meeting. And later on, you called me to tell me that you were not successful. Deep within me, I know that because I turned down your meeting. So how do I handle that as a potential candidate?
Thank you, Comfort.
Okay.
I think one of the basic things that you have said that is very critical is the fact that he scribbled a note and gave to you. For me, that's enough evidence. You have every opportunity, you have every platform, you have every right to take time to give a feedback to the organization. And when you're going to do that, you're going to make sure you be diligent so that the report doesn't end with him. So it's either you're writing a petition or you're sending a mail, but I would say write and take it to the reception and say she begin to the MT. I'm just saying that there are channels through which you could report and you have a basis to report already. Because he has not just said it verbally and he can deny. Because with verbal, it's difficult to sometimes collate all the evidence, but he has sent you a note, he has even called you. And probably maybe if you really want to take it further, you could send him a text and allow him to commit himself in writing by sending you a chat saying that, yeah, this is what I want. So at the end of the day, you have the right to escalate. A lot of times we do not escalate because we think nothing will be done. That is true. I've gone through that phase in life where you think that it's stressful. But over time, both in public, both in private, we are seeing it now. Like LaRouche said, look at Unical. The guy has been put aside. For a long time, we kept quiet, but eventually something has happened. So if you think that you are unfairly treated, you are discriminated at because of this sexual overture that you did not respond to, you have the right to escalate. And make sure that it doesn't go to the hiring manager. Of course, people will go to the extreme, sometimes and even go on social media and call out the organization. So I'm saying that if you do escalate, if you do report directly to somebody who is senior in that organization, they will take it up because they know that you also have the option of going to social media, calling them out and messing up their brand. So please, you have the right to complain. And I don't think it's a place where it's not someone you even want to work with, please, if he's already doing that now. Thank you.
Yeah, just to add to what Ajoke just said, right? That is why we always emphasize on the importance of documentation, right? Whether you have an official or unofficial discussion, always document. For instance, the Lemfi case, that lady had enough evidence. You could see chats either on WhatsApp or in social media DMs. Those are the things that she used in nailing the guy, right? So if it was a text, save it. If you have one of those disappearing messages thing, before it disappears, screen munch it, right? Maybe use another phone to take a picture of the chat. You understand? If it's a scribbled note, save it, document it. These are the things that you would use, right, to make a case for yourself and against the other person. I hope that answers your question, Comfort.
Yes, thanks.
All right, thank you. Thank you very much. Do we have more questions? Or any other person who has an opinion? Yes, so Ngozi Udukwe, please go ahead. You can unmute
Hi,
your mic.
good evening,
Yes,
everyone.
yes.
I've just
Good
been
evening.
listening. This is quite enlightening. Thank you so much, Sister Joke, for the perspective you took this topic. I love that you are speaking to HR professionals and you are directing most of the points to us, because sometimes the fish rots from the head. It starts from us. Sometimes even from amongst us, you see that all of these things are happening from among us. It happens in most organizations. But I like the fact that you've hit the nail on the head. Please, let us set our boundaries. Let's start from ourselves first. And then let us also advertise our policies against such things in the office. I've seen it where in some places that I worked, I didn't even get to know that these managers, the so-called team leads, heads of departments, are the ones encouraging the people who are not performing well because somehow they're getting something from them. And then the ones who are performing well, but somehow not adhering to their pleas or their requests, that being intimidated in the office. Sometimes before I get to know, things would have gone so wrong. So as HR, let us make it clear. We run a fair performance management process. This is a process. And if wherever you feel that it is not properly done, then feel free to escalate. Don't bottle it up to yourself. Maybe if you can make our policies, not just about this sexual relations, to every other aspect of the job, let people know about it. And then let us also try to practice what we preach. Thank you so much for this opportunity. And I wish we can take it further than this, because a lot is really happening in the workplace.
Thank you very much, Ngozi. Ajoke, from most of the personal messages myself and Oliemi have been getting, it looks like we are going to have a part 2. This was kind of short, so I think you should do a part 2 that could have another session much later in the year or sometime in the month, right? Because I'm sure a lot of people have a lot of questions, and I know there were some parts that you had to skim over that people will still need more clarity on. So if it's not going to be too much, we would like you to have a part 2, right, of this session. So do we have any more persons who would like to come up to speak or give their opinions before we round up? Or any questions in the box? Okay, so I've been told we can close. All right, so just to tie all this together, one thing as HR professionals that we should have. Oh, we have Adejumo. Okay, let Adejumo come up.
Final contribution. Then
final question before I close out. All right, Adejumo, please go ahead.
Okay, thank you very much for the opportunity, and I really appreciate the great presentation from JK. Just for more understanding, I am a male employee, and now from the day I enter my employer's organization, I try to make my stand known that I don't shake female employees and I don't hug female employees. But some of them sometimes take it offensive that why won't you shake? If you don't shake, then you should be able to hug, And before you know it, sometimes they are the ones that lead you to the harassment scenario. So from that perspective, organizations need to look at the other side of the coin, because I think it's not just about the males harassing the females to harass males. And that's the point I just want to share. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you very much. Okay,
let me just say something
please.
quickly, then I'll round up. Thank you. Thank you very much for that contribution. If you notice in my presentation, I made a point of mentioning both males and female, because I've also had cases where male employees will imply that they are the madam they report to, you understand? So it happens in both cases. But in your own case, I think you already have the answer, because what you said was that initially you told them you do not shake, and then they request for hugs. Bros, at the point of asking for a hug, there is a yes and there is a no. It's a different thing if you're looking at how you can say your no and still be liked. You cannot eat your cake and have it. It's either you stand on your principle that I don't want to be hugged, I don't want to shake, and that is how it is going to be. And some will like it, take it for that, and some will not. And you maintain your lane. But if you're looking at, they can also harass you. My question now is that, is it under compulsion? Are you being coerced? It's a different thing if you're saying that your senior boss, if you're saying to me that your MD or your HOD is a female and she insists that you must hug her, then that's sexual harassment, you understand? But if it's a case where you have a choice and you're thinking that because they are feeling somehow, they are taking it somehow, maybe you now just grudgingly allow them to hug you. Bros, you're playing with fire. At the end of the day, it's their word against your own, because truly, nobody's forcing you. If you're saying that this is what I want to, this is how I want to do it, please. You're talking from the point of somebody who wants to be a bit of both compassionate and being accepted. It's good, but you still need to draw the line, because even that hugging, you know that it is prone to so many. Anything can happen. If somebody hugs you at the wrong time, in the wrong way, anything can happen. You'll be embarrassed, and you also know what I'm saying. So please, you have the right to choose how you're going to conduct yourself in the workplace. It starts from you first. Please, yeah. If you don't want it, you don't want it. Thank you very much. And thank you, everybody, for your comments and contributions. I appreciate you. Thank you, Laro. Thank you, Mr. Adeosho. Thank you. Good night.
All right. Just to finish up, as HR professionals, always have policies for every function, right? Everything that governs, yourself as a company. Workplace policies is not just your performance management policies, recruitment policies, but other policies with regards relationships within the workplace, right? Always document such things. Another thing to always have is that awareness. Do you even, during your onboarding, are these policies read out to the new employees? Do you have sessions? And that is why most companies, on a quarterly basis, in conjunction with their legal team or their compliance teams, they usually have refresher courses for this type of things. You don't need to wait till an incident happens before you remind people of the type of policies that you have. Another thing is setting boundaries. Like Adejumo said, the moment he gets into an organization, he tells his female colleagues, I do not shake, I do not hug. The moment you put that out there, you are setting a boundary. And the moment someone tries to get across the boundary by either extending their hands for a handshake or trying to hug, immediately you tell them, no, I don't do that. Majoke says something during her statement. No is a complete sentence, right? It means you're telling that person, whatever you want to do or you are doing, I do not approve of it. Whether the person is, you tell people, even when someone says no jokingly, it is still no doesn't mean try harder. No, even the person saying no, you don't know if the person is even just trying to be, trying to de-escalate that scenario by just smiling while saying the no, right? So when the person says no, accept the no for what the no is and move on. Also, if you are the type of person who jokes a lot, you pass innuendos at the workplace and whatnot, right? The office is usually not the place for such things. Yes, these are people we spend the greater hours of our days with, right? So the tendencies to wanting to share jokes or make work light. When in doubt, just be silent, right? Learn to read the room. Even if you have a personal relationship with those people, you don't know what is in their mind at that moment, because there are sometimes you have a personal relationship with someone at the office, but that person is in a bad mood and you make a snide comment and the person changes it for you. You two are shocked that, what did I say? What did I do? So when in doubt, keep silent. If you are the hugger, you are the shaker, you are the touchy person, I say another thing is always have your hands in your pockets. and not have your hands in your pocket and look like you're being defensive. There's a way your body exudes some form of cue. The person you know that, okay, this person just wants their hand in their pocket, but then the way you communicate will go a long way. Another thing is, when people speak up, please do not shove it under the carpet. You might be saving the company from litigation when you do a proper investigation, right? The moment someone comes to meet you and tells you, oh, I'm being harassed, I say, the guy is like that, let it go. No. Sometimes they say it's from clap, dance starts. Once you do investigate and shut that and get that case to a conclusion, what you are going to do is going to enable that person to do more or even do worse. And finally, create a feedback mechanism within your organization where people can speak up, right? Where people can come up to say, what their issues are they being harassed? And if it's going to involve a senior member of staff, right? Every senior member also has someone, right? Or like I said, apply wisdom. Speak to other people that you know that if you put your heads together, you will have a conclusion. So on that note, I want to thank our speaker, Ajoke Motayo, once again for this topic. And like we said earlier, we would expect you to have a part 2 for us. I want to thank every member of the HR Mentorship Core team for always putting together this series. We know that by the time Ajoke comes back for the part 2, it's going to be loaded. And please always remember to join the other HR mentorship knowledge sharing sessions that we have. We still have some, one more tomorrow. For those of you who are joining us for the first time, we want to thank you, want to appreciate you for joining this forum. If you're an HR person, please go through the chat box. Odiemi has dropped the link to the HR mentorship groups where we share ideas as human resources persons, where we also post advertisements for HR jobs. If you are a non-HR person but know an HR person who would be interested, right, in joining this group, please share the link with them. Also, this is another call for us to get people who would like to speak. If you know you're an HR person or within the periphery of the HR world, and you would like to share knowledge on issues around the workplace and with regards to people in the workplace, please kindly contact any members of the HR Mentorship Core group with your profile and the topic you would like to speak on, and we'll communicate an available date for you that you'll be speaking to the group. On that note, on behalf of the HR Mentorship Group, I want to say thank you for joining and see you at another session. Thank you.
We look forward to the part 2 of this session.
Yes, we are looking